Thank you everyone for coming. I'm Steve Tsunami, Chairman of WDCA. With me tonight is Carlos Estrella from the DEP. Mr. Patel from the DEP. We have some presidents and chairmen from the other WDCAs sitting up in front, as well as some other members from the Lyme. The purpose of this meeting is to have Carlos give us a brief presentation on the project from inception to where we are, and I'll go through some of the financials of the project and status of the projects in a little more detail after Carlos speaks. And it'll be a hopefully short question and answer. So, Carlos.
All right, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me back?
Yes.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Carlos Aguera. I am a supervising environmental engineer with Connecticut DEP Municipal Wastewater Program. And I have here with me today Nisha Patel, who's the director of the Water Planning and Management Division with DEP. Just for those of you who don't know, my program administers the Clean Water Fund program in Connecticut.
Could you stand up, please? Could you stand up and talk? Easier.
Well, we need the microphone. Someone stand here back there.
Yeah. What about now?
Stand up.
It's not working. Better? All right, folks. What about now? Better?
Thank you.
All right, let me start over again. All right, so my name is Carlos Aguera. I am a supervising environmental engineer with Connecticut DEP Municipal Wastewater. And I have here with me today Nisha Patel, who is the director of the Water Planning and Management Division. The Municipal Wastewater Program that I work for administers the primary funding program, financial assistance program in the state for municipal wastewater infrastructure upgrades. It is called the Clean Water Fund in Connecticut. Some of you may hear nationally that this is called the State Revolving Fund, but in Connecticut we call it the Clean Water Fund program. Next slide. All right, so I have a quick agenda here for all of you. Just give it a little bit of background on the project. So the way the agenda is laid out is basically on the same phases or components that this project has. So we completed planning a few years ago. I'm going to be going over some of the planning steps that we're taking and some of the findings from the reports. I'm going to be going over a little bit over where we are today with the design of the project, and then we're kind of like what the next steps will be with this wastewater management project. All right, next slide. All right, so basically, going back to 2011, the first two communities that approached Connecticut DEP for planning funding were Old Colony Beach Association and All Shores. They performed the planning reports between the year 2011 and 2013. A couple of years after that, it was Miami Beach Association, MBA. And then around the same time, the town of Lyme with Soundview and Miscellaneous Town Area B joined the effort to do a planning study. So the purpose of a planning study is to really look at the issue. You know, there's a wastewater management need within the community, kind of like identify that need, look at alternatives to address that need, and ultimately make a recommendation on how that need can be addressed in the long term. So again, each community, they did their own independent planning reports with their own engineering companies. Foster and O'Neill worked with the private association, Woodard and Kern is working with the town of Lyme. Originally, RFP Engineering was the company that did the original planning report for Old Colony, but then Foster and O'Neill took over that process. Next slide, please. All right, so what was contained, what is the summary of the criteria that that was looked at in these reports. So generally speaking, septic systems need adequate space to properly function, right? They need adequate separation to groundwater, they need adequate separation to the property line, they need adequate separation to a water course or a wetland, and they need adequate space to be able to provide adequate leaching into the soil. So I'll get into that detail a little bit further down in the presentation, but
Carlos, maybe
Yeah.
I'll see, I know that some folks are trying to write notes and things. We can offer this presentation afterwards, so you'll have all of this content.
yeah, thank you, Nisha.
It is being recorded and will be posted.
All right, thank you.
Next slide.
No, say that please for a little bit. Sorry. All right, so again, going back to the space, adequate space for siting a properly functioning septic system. What we find in these areas south of 156 is that we have a density of development that ranges between 13 and 21 bedrooms per acre. The standard rule says that you are at or below six bedrooms per acre, you're fine, you don't need to do additional studies. But as we can see here, the density is so high that it's actually double or triple the recommended density in the public health code of 6 bedrooms per acre. We also have 85% of the lots in the project area are smaller than quarter of an acre. We have a bunch of them that are 5,000, 4,000 square feet in size. Little tiny lots, right? Not conducive for siting a properly functioning septic system. We also have different conditions in the soil, right? Northwestern portion of all shores, a lot of bedrock. Closer to 156, a lot of bedrock. We also have sandy soils, which, for a lot of people might think that this is great because water goes in the ground. The problem with sandy soils is that the water travels too fast and there is not adequate renovation, not adequate bacteria deactivation in the soil. We also have shallow groundwater. Miami Beach Association, SunView, you dig a hole in the ground, you can find groundwater 2 feet to 3 feet below the surface, so it's very shallow for putting out a septic system. All of the studies, the 3 or 4 studies that were done for this project, all of them perform water quality testing. And I'm showing here maximums. It was a range of different results, right? Some of them show no pollutants, others show really high levels of bacteria, high levels of ammonia. Just to let folks know in this room, ammonia is really an indicator of raw sewage because it's basically wastewater that goes directly in the ground and enters groundwater without any filtration in the soil. Next slide, please, Michelle. All right. Again, going back to density of development, septic system configuration. A lot of the septic systems in the project area, there are cesspools, there are undersized septic tanks, undersized leaching areas. We have a combination of many different types of systems that have been built here throughout the years that don't meet the public health code. So the public health code prescribes some, like I mentioned before, some separating distances to sensitive receptors like groundwater or if there's a wetland, or if there's a drinking water well, right? Like the case of Miami Beach Association, we have 50% of the properties in that community relying on on-site wells. And they also have community wells, by the way, that have some buffers, basically where you have septic systems that are leaching within these buffer areas of those drinking water wells. So about 50% of Miami Beach Association relies on drinking water wells, about 40% SunView. The other communities have commercial water with connected water, so this is not an issue for some of the other communities, but it's definitely an issue for some of the areas in the project area. Next slide, please. Okay, so I have some excerpts of what is the authority that we have as a state to basically mandate a solution here, right? So again, I'm not going to read everything verbatim here. It's posted there. Connecticut General Statutes provides a definition of what is pollution. The state, after we received copies of the reports from the communities, we basically factor in everything that was looked at in those reports. Again, going back to the two slides that I showed before, the density of development, lot size, groundwater, all of those factors were combined. And that's how we made a determination that we have a community pollution problem in this area of Lyme. Okay? The section of the statute that provides the authority is section 228428. Basically says right there, if the commissioner finds that there is a municipality causing pollution of the waters of the state, or that a community pollution problem exists, or that a pollution by municipality or community pollution problem can reasonably be anticipated in the future. So basically, that's our authority to basically mandate a solution to the problem. Next slide, Isha. Oh,
Sorry, I skipped one. Maybe a
you
few.
skip a bunch of them.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Oh, that.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so after the reports documented, what are some of the challenges that we have in the project area, they looked at what are some possible solutions. So they evaluated anything between conventional septic system upgrades. Again, not the ideal solution because, again, the problem is the density of development, the lot size. It is very difficult to site a properly functioning septic system in some of these lots. They have to be mounted, they have to be engineered, designed to be able to fit within the property. And still, even after you engineer it, a lot of times you can still not achieve compliance with the health code. So for that reason, the conventional septic system route was kind of like ruled out. The other option that was looked at several years ago was, okay, what if we build a community system? Basically, an oversized septic tank, going to an off-site location, putting sewers in the ground, collecting the wastewater, taking it to an off-site location. In this case, we looked at Cherrystone site. All of you might know what this site is. However, it was ruled out because the Connecticut Water owns a well field, drinking water well field next door, and there were concerns with basically discharging treated wastewater in the ground next to a drinking water source. So for that reason, that option was also not adopted. And there's also another situation why this option was not adopted was because when you discharge in the ground, you're limited by the capacity of the soil to accept the flow. So we have 940, 960 homes or EDUs that would be connected to this system. And there were concerns that this site might not have the full capacity to be able to connect every property within the associations and time, some unit miscellaneous town area D. So for that reason, that this option was also not adopted. Next slide, please. All right, there's also an advanced treatment unit. What is an advanced treatment unit? Basically, it's a black box. It is a miniature wastewater treatment plant, kind of like what you see at the municipal level, MPC, Manabasset, but it's all in a little black box. It's a biological treatment process. It produces great effluent. It is expensive, and one of the challenges that we noted in this project was this is a seasonal community, and I would say 70% of the community is seasonal. So with these systems, you have to you have to feed it all the time to keep the biology alive. During the off season, somebody would have to go in the property, feed something to the system to keep it active. For that reason, it was ruled out. It wasn't the ideal solution for this application. All right, the last option that was looked at was basically constructing, putting a pipe in the ground, sanitary sewers, and basically pump station and a force main, which is a pressurized pipe, taking the wastewater flow over to East Lyme, and from East Lyme it would go flow by gravity or pump stations all the way to New London for treatment and disposal. So this was adopted as the most technically feasible, cost-effective solution. Not just in one report, all four reports agreed on the same solution. So that was basically the recommended alternative that was adopted for this project. All right, next slide. All right, so what came next? After the reports were done, we approved the reports. The private associations signed a consent order, which is an enforcement action in the year 2018, basically requiring the association to proceed with implementation of the recommended alternative for the construction of the sewers. I want to point out that right now the town is not under order. They have been diligently working with associations in moving forward, so for that reason we have not issued an order to the town. And also in 2019, we went through a very comprehensive public noticing period under SEPA. Some of you might have heard this, it's the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act. Any state actions, any state-sponsored actions need to go through this process. And this process was actually performed not only for the town, but also for the associations, and the process was completed in 2019 with the approval from OPM.
Could I just add in, when we
Yes.
say state-sponsored action, what we're talking about is state-funded action in this context. So because the state has partially funded the planning work, et cetera, there is a requirement to go through SEPA. So I just wanted to provide that clarification.
Yeah, thank you. All right, fast forward to 2021, pandemic hit Connecticut, March of 2020. Bids were issued in 2021. Unfortunately, because of the supply chain issues, a lot of materials and construction costs escalated significantly. Estimated about 25 to 30% escalation between 2019 and June of 2021. Basically what happened was that the associations could not award the contract because it exceeded the amount of funding that they had appropriated for the project. So for that reason, that the contract could not be awarded for construction of the sanitary sewer. All right, next slide. All right, fast forward to 2024. Actually, Steve, I stole one of Steve's slide here. Steve's going to be going over his presentation after this presentation, and basically, I just want to point out that based on the 2021 numbers that were received, through the bids, we updated those numbers to $2024. And the only reason why I put in this slide, Steve, is because your estimate is very accurate. It's very close to the estimate I created in the office, and also with some of the numbers I've seen from Foss and O'Neill. So next slide, please, Nisha. And using the town's numbers, basically right now, I broke it down per community, just to be absolutely clear. The number that you see there, the 12.4, 11.2, 12.2, and 18.1, those numbers include the internal sewers within each community, and also the pump station and the force main, as well as engineering. So that's basically the total cost of construction and design. These numbers were updated following generally accepted standards for construction market. Some of you might have heard the Consumer Price Index. The index that we use for this project is called ENR, which is for construction market. And there was about 25% escalation between the 2021 bid number and what we will be looking at today in 2024 dollars. Right in the middle here, we have the subsidy, the grant that the project would get from the Clean Water Fund program. This project qualifies as a small community grant, and it would receive 25% grant. And I also want to point out, actually, here at the bottom, that the cost that I have identified here does not include the cost of connection. So the connection to the sewer line on the public right-of-way would be on the property owner. It is estimated around $5,000 to $6,000. But anyway, going back to the loan forgiveness, basically after the pandemic sort of escalated costs, the state actually is offering a one-time opportunity, conditional basically, where the state could or is providing an additional not to exceed $50 million, and combined with the 25% small community grant, the 25%, not to exceed 50% of the total eligible cost of the project. So right now the state would provide up to 50% of the cost of the project for the capital, for eligible costs. So right at the bottom, you have the cost per EDU, so per property. And it varies because again, some view does not have the same site conditions as Miami Beach Association with the private wells. So the sewer line in Miami Beach Association is going to require some additional measures to properly design it because of the drinking water sources around it. But we're looking at a range between $25,000 for 20 years per property up to $39,000 in NBA. And I also broke it down by the yearly cost. How much it's going to be per year per EDU?
Per EDU, right? Let's clarify, not per property, but per EDU.
Per EDU,
Per
yes.
EDU,
Per
that's not
EDU.
per property.
Okay, per EDU.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Can you clarify?
please.
What's the ADU?
So we'll go over that after the presentation, see if we can cover that.
Can everyone please give them respect? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the cost that I showed in the previous slide, that's the cost to construct sewers within the public right of way. I know that the private associations also have other structural needs, infrastructure needs, like stormwater upgrades. The Clean Water Fund program can provide funding for some of those stormwater drainage upgrades, as long as there is like a direct conflict with the wastewater pipe. So, for instance, if you put in a sewer line here and that is in conflict, or there's a catch basin or a stormwater pipe that is in the path of this sewer line, the Clean Water Fund program could finance the cost of relocation or modification of that stormwater asset. But generally speaking, stormwater would be funded by the associations. It's not eligible for Clean Water Fund participation. I just want to make that clear. Next slide, please. All right. So right now where we are today, we're hoping to have the associations in town issue bids by this fall, October, November timeframe. And again, we're pretty comfortable with the cost estimates that we have. They have been adjusted. I think all of the estimates that we have with Steve and Foster O'Neill and Woodard and Curran are generally within the same ballpark number. But ultimately, we will have to go through the bidding process, and that's really what's going to verify the numbers for us, right? We still need to go through it. That's ultimately what's going to dictate how much this project is going to cost at the end. But we're very comfortable with the numbers that we had estimated. Right now, there's a very favorable construction market because we don't have a lot of contracts out there. So I think the contractors are generally, looking for work. So that could actually help getting better proposals to construct the project. All right, next slide, please. And that's about it.
Hold questions to the end. Yes, please hold questions to the end. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I'm Steve Tsunami. Thank you everyone for coming out. I'm going to go a little more in depth on the history, but of where the project status is, as well as the costs, which everyone is, I'm sure, I don't know. I'd like to also thank Martha and Carlos and Nisha for coming and presenting. We will provide an overview of breakdown on the Lyme Wastewater regional system and provide a detailed summary of the funding being offered by CTP to ensure proper affordability. Next, please. So the breakdown of project costs. There's two sections to the project. There's an internal infrastructure, which is pretty much all the gravity going from your house through the streets to the pump station. That's internal. Miami Beach, All Lyme Shores, Old Colony, Soundview, and Area B, each have those components. It goes into the pump station. From the pump station, we go into a shared cost because we're not all gonna pay to have 4 lines go into East Lyme. So the shared costs are the force main going down Route 156 that ties eventually into the East Lyme sewer system. It's the pump station that gets it there, that creates the pressure to move it out. And there are costs for tie-ins in East Lyme and New London, and all these are broken out by percentage of EDUs. EDUs are equivalent dwelling units. They are, for Soundview, 85 to 90% of the homes down there will be 1 EDU. Larger ones will have more of an EDU percentage, smaller ones will have less. We're working on different formulas to ensure that the allocation of EDUs is the fairest possible.
What's an EDU? What's it consist of?
An EDU is an equivalent dwelling unit. So the typical house down in Soundview is 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a kitchen. Most of the houses down there will fall as 1 EDU. If you own a house like that, it's 1 EDU. If you have a 6,000 square foot house, it's going to be more. I don't know how much more. We have formulas that were presented by Frank Chan on our website. We never accepted those because we knew we would have to come back. It was a starting point, not an ending point. Frank Chan's calculations don't include any commercial properties. So all of the commercial properties are excluded from that formula. So we knew we had to go back to that, but it was a starting point that we said, we're at a good place now, let's move on to some other important things to get the project moving. We'll be working on that diligently over the next year, I'm sure. But that's what an EDU is. I don't know how it's defined in Miami Beach, All Lyme Shores, or Old Colony, because we're not responsible for determining each WPCA is responsible for determining how to figure what 1 EDU is. What I'm saying is, the town of Lyme WPCA wants to have the majority, 85% of the houses fall within 1 EDU. And then the outliers pay less or pay more. And commercial properties will be handled differently altogether. So the cost of the shared infrastructure, pump station, odor control, force main, will be shared by the 4 beach associations. I know our percentage is 29.7%, so if the costs for the force main and pump station are $10 million, Old Lyme would pay $2.97 million. Together with beach associations, it adds up to 100%. A future slide will show the breakdown. Next slide, please. How will the projects be funded? The grant from the Clean Water Funds, 25%. That was figured at the original referendum amount for us. It wasn't excluded in the referendum. It was the referendum was what our costs were expected to be, and then less than 25%. We already knew we were going to get less than 25%. That was going to be and then that was going to be funded over 20 years at 2%. So whatever we borrowed from the Clean Water Fund is financed by the users over 20 years at 2%. Forgivable loan from the state of Connecticut, as Carlos mentioned, was offered after COVID, and that is up to $15 million or no more than 50% of the project cost. So for us to go over the $15 million mark, we would have to have all the projects come in over $60 million. No one expects a number anywhere near that. So we're pretty confident that we'll have 50% of everyone's project funded. As I said, it's 20 years at 2% interest. Homeowners, homeowner assessments, you'll be assessed for the loan repayment. It'll be based upon your equivalent dwelling units. Like I said, probably 85% of the homes will be 1 EDU. So whatever the data is here, you can see it. I want to dispel something, is that nowhere in Franklin, I mean, we did have proposals on figuring EDUs that did have homes at $88,000. That was the first go. Frank had kind of leveled it out to include more in the middle and further outliers. I believe the highest EDU at the time was 44,000. So no one in Soundview would be paying, or Area B, would be paying more than 44,000 under Frank's calculations. The assessment will be for 20 years. The cost from the house, the curbside will be the owner's responsibility. As Carlos said, we would expect it to be about $4,000 to $6,000. Another note, to keep the project progressing, Old Colony Beach Association will be taking responsibility for the shared costs and be reimbursed by the other 3 stakeholders, Miami Beach, Old Lyme Shores, and Old Lyme, through the cost sharing agreement. So there's an agreement that we're working on. We've signed an agreement that says we're going to join the CSA, and that's the 3 beach associations in Old Lyme. Basically, it's the governing document to have us working together. It breaks out the percentage of ownership and costs, as well as how we go forward in actually making decisions on construction. I mean, there has to be someone that makes decisions, and so this document does that. Old Colony is going to be basically the administrator of the project loans, and when they're done, the DEP will assess each of the balance, will assess each of the associations, their percentage of the balance, and then we start paying. Again, equivalent dwelling unit is demanded facilities equivalent to a typical single-family dwelling. Next. All right. Here is the slide that I hope I can explain as best I can. So, there's a lot of notes here. So let's go. Let's bring it down to the right, so I can get to the top. There we go. A little over to the right. Just there you go. Yeah, right there. All right. So for Old Lyme, I did this for everyone because I had the numbers. But for Old Lyme, what we did is the low bid for the shared infrastructure in 2021 was $14,639,000 and change. I added a 25 escalation to that number to equal $3,659,000. So seeing it escalated 25% from 2021 to now, it would cost us $18,298,915 to do the project. Bring it to the left, please. Keep going. Keep going. That's good. The Connecticut DEP has offered us a loan of $19,285,478. So that's already $1 million more than what we anticipate the job coming. But I want to use a worst case scenario of what could happen. So using a higher number, we have Old Lyme being 29.7% share, Old Colony being 24.3%, Old Lyme Shores at 21%, and Miami Beach being at 24.9%. So the shared liability of that $19,285,478.98 loan would be $5,727,787.26 for Old Lyme WPCA. It's basically this percent times that number. And I guess I'll get it. $4,686,371 for Old Colony, $4,049,950 for Lyme Shores, and $4,802,084 for Miami Beach. That would be if we had to pay for the whole thing. But the state is offering, through the CWF funding, a 25% grant. So $1,431,946 comes off Old Lyme share, $1,171,000 comes off Old Colony, $1,012,000 comes off Old Lyme Shores, and $1.2 million comes off Miami Beach. With a forgivable loan equal to the same as the 25% being deducted, our total liability for the shared infrastructure after we get our grant money is $2,863,893 for Old Lyme WPCA. For Old Colony, it's $2,343,185. For Old Lyme Shores, it's $2,024,000, and for Miami Beach, $2,401,000. That's for the shared infrastructure. That's the pump station and going out into East Lyme. So that takes us there. Now, because this is a town-wide meeting, I'll go through this. I only went through the Old Lyme WPCA, but so now we have the shared infrastructure. That's everything from your house through the street to the pump station. That's all gravity. You don't need pumps. You don't need anything. You flush your toilet, it goes down. The estimates for our internal infrastructure is $6,452,000. For Old Colony, $6,309,000. Old Lyme Shores, $796,000. Miami Beach, $12,992,000. 25% grant is $1,613,000 for Old Lyme. Old Colony, $1,577 million. Old Lyme Shores, almost $2 million. In Miami Beach, $3,248,000. The forgivable loan is the same amount going across. So the total liability of our shared infrastructure after state grant and forgivable loan for Old Lyme WPCA would be $3,226,141. For Old Colony, $3,154,000. For Old Lyme Shores, $3,998,000. And for Miami Beach, $6,496,000. Can we come up a little? Or, yeah, that's good.
Is that right?
And over. All right, so based on the estimates above, now, per EDU, the amount financed at 2% over 20 years is $22,555.69, or $1,368 per year per EDU for 20 years. I'm sorry? For sound deal. Can we go to the right, or bring it so the left shows? All right, so this part here shows what we had approved about 5 or 6 years ago at referendum. The original referendum amount was $9.5 million. A CWF 25% grant, which is all we were going to get, was $2,375,000, leaving an original estimated loan value of $7,125,000. When you add in the forgivable loan that the DEP is offering, we have a total shared liability of $2,863,893. We have a total liability for the internal infrastructure of $3,226,146. So the total liability for the new funds is $6,090,000. It's a reduction, a total liability reduction. We are spending more, don't get me wrong, but because the DEP is offering more of a percentage than what inflation occurred, we're actually going to lower the original estimated loan value by $1,034,965. So we would be financing about $6 million with the new funds being available. Next slide, please. If there isn't. So, O-Line, well, that's actually a misnomer. O-Line taxpayer liability for the project. It's not really taxpayer. It's the users of the system. The project is being funded by clean water funding. Ancillary expenses not covered by CWF will have to be loaned to the O-Line WPCA. Ancillary expenses are modest and include O-Line WPCA's share of taxes and maintenance on the property purchased to house the pump station and dioxide tank. Design and construction costs are eligible expenses covered by CWF funding. Contractors are paid via CWF funding. 25% grant, 25% forgivable loan has been offered by the CTDEP. Once construction is complete, the O-Line WPCA will convert the balance of the construction loan into a 20-year note financed at 2%. O-Line WPCA will repay the loan to sewer assessment collections from its customers. Next slide, please. All right, in summary, the town of O-Line has been ordered to remediate pollution in Sound View and miscellaneous B by the CTDEP.
So, could I just chime in? So I think that is incorrect.
That is.
O-Line is not under.
We're not under order. Yes, because we are complying with
Correct.
the pollution control plan.
Because there's a plan of action.
Because there's a
right
plan of
now.
action. What would happen if we stopped?
The requirement still exists, so I think, we would hate to be talking in hypotheticals, but Connecticut Deep sort of favors working together, working through the plan that's in place as a result of all the planning, the engineering studies, et cetera. And I think we would have to go back and look at our enforcement options. We have something that's called an enforcement response policy. You can find it right on our website, so I think we would go to that policy, talk internally to determine what the actions that DEEP might take in the event that you choose not to move forward.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I missed that. I did not include that. So the apparent only acceptable method for remediation is to install sewers. I think Carlos went through the options that were turned down, as well as the one that was accepted, which is sewers. Whether you agree or disagree with the logic, it is the only one acceptable to the DEP right now. And I don't think that's going to change. Due to increasing costs, O-Line and the Beach Association secured an additional 25% forgivable loan from the DEP to help make this project affordable as defined by DEP. O-Line WPCA anticipates that its project will be slightly over the initial, no, I don't anticipate that at all. The O-Line will be slightly over the initial budget of $9.5 million based on inserting unit costs from the last Old Colony bid and adjusting for inflation. However, the increase in cost is projected to be offset by the additional 25% of forgivable loan that will result in an anticipated total loan of approximately $6 million, which is $1 million less than the original anticipated. That's what I was saying. The costs have gone up. The financing is gone. The financed amount should be lower. O-Line and the VAs are on track to bid the 4 individual internal infrastructure and 1 shared infrastructure projects by the end of 2024. As Carlos said, probably, I would say October, November was probably good. We can get them out earlier, but that's when we'd like to get them out. If the bids fall within budget, work could begin as early as winter 2025. O-Line WPCA has decided and will reconfirm that construction may not take place between Memorial Day and Labor Day to minimize disruption to the beach residents and the public at large. Construction of Soundview and Area B sewers is estimated to take approximately 1 year. O-Line WPCA does not anticipate costs of construction to exceed the assessment that will be borne by the users, thereby limiting any taxpayer liability. Users will be invoiced for their assessment on a yearly basis for 20 years and will pay 2% finance fee. WPCA anticipates each EDU will cost $1,368 per year, with an EDU being equivalent to the typical size dwelling. The WPCA will also determine user fees that will be based on the cost of transference and maintenance fees. Next slide. And I believe that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. I guess now
What we're going to do is we're going to have two moderators for this part of the program. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We will go back and forth. So,
Let's start in the back and move forward. We might do that.
ladies first. Go ahead.
Oh, going first? You want to?
Just please state your name when you're
And your address.
asking the question.
What street you live on?
And address.
Give the number, just the number of the street.
Luke Giroux, my agent. Obviously, the costs we're talking about here are just for construction. I mean, any anticipated costs once they're installed as far as annual usage fees or whatever.
What's the annual fee going up after?
I think they was asking the O&M fee, Steve, that would be a yearly O&M fee.
So O&M, I can tell you what determines the O&M. I can't tell you what it will be right now. But what goes into it is our fees that go through, that London charges to treat the sewage. It'll be electric bills, it'll be maintenance fees on the pump station, force main. And I'm only speaking as far as the shared infrastructure. There may be other fees by each WPCA. On a gravity system, there are very little fees, but there is some maintenance. Basically the gravity, works by itself with no maintenance, really. There is maintenance, but very, very little. So most of this is dealing with the shared infrastructure. You have to maintain the pumps, you have to maintain the pump station, you have to buy dioxide, you have to, it's whatever the operation and maintenance fees plus a fund that has to be set aside for emergency that's dictated by the state. The state requires a certain amount of contingency for an emergency break or something. But those will be figured out. Thank you. Those will be figured out as we progress through this. If you look at other area towns, the fees are generally $300 to $600 a year. I don't see why it would be any different. So, I'm going to do the same now.
Sebastian Manchfeed, on board the Howard. My question kind of piggybacks off of that. So to say that it's going to fluctuate, is that kind of what you're saying? If maintenance occurs to this system, our bill would fluctuate as the cost, or is it built into that 29%? And then also, with the 3 streets in question as far as Sound Beach, those are public roads. Has this ever been done in the state of Connecticut before, where public roads, now it's a public system, now we're going to be paying for repaving of the road and all these other things? That's, to me, you keep saying us, but really it's us, not the town of Lyme. It's really the 3 streets or the beach communities, because it's not coming off of the tax base of Lyme. You're specifically generating it to us. So that's my question.
Good point.
Well, the first part of your question is, I would hope that we're not going to be fluctuating our maintenance estimate. Maybe a year or 2 in, we should have a pretty idea of the type of money that we're going to need, and it would be just a set fee every year.
It would stabilize, you say?
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna. it shouldn't be it should be based on anticipated maintenance. So if you don't have maintenance, that money gets banked. When you do, you use it. So I don't think it's not gonna, you can't bill for an emergency after. You have to have the money in hand. So it would be replenishing. I would imagine that if the system gets to 50 years old, there's got to be some adjustment in maintenance fees, but the first 20 years, it should be pretty steady.
The second part of that question. The other thing, Steve, I think the other part of his question was user fee versus like somebody that's only here for a couple of weeks versus somebody that's here for the whole season.
All right, so
That wasn't the other part of the question. The other part of the question.
That's part of the first.
Okay, the other part of the question was specifically about the public roads, public, and why it's not coming off the tax base. You keep saying we, and my question is, it's not we, it's us, because it's not coming off the tax base of Old Lyme. It's generating just to the people on those specific streets.
Well, CWF funding doesn't cover roads.
What about the rest?
It covers trenches.
So in the case of the line, we have to start, we're talking about South Center roads, they already have scanned, they're 14, 16 feet wide. So the newer folks are paying for it.
Well, we can't hear Carlos back here because he's not on mic. Can you put him on mic, please?
Yes. No, regarding the road repaving, the Clean Water Fund program, like in the case of the private road, the association's roadways, these are roadways that don't meet DOT standards. We're talking about 14, 16 feet wide roads. So the Clean Water Fund program, after we, just imagine, the sewer line going in, all the laterals about every 40, 50 feet going to the house. By the time this is all said and done, you pretty much turn out the entire road. So the Clean Water Fund program can actually step in and finance road restoration.
And I think to clarify, that is we support the grant component as well as.
Yeah, full financing.
But his question was regarding a public road,
Right. No,
not
so-
a private.
So that I'll defer to the town first.
So the public road, I assume is the same. The public road, yes. The short answer to your question is yes. I think that you're going to bear the cost of that on a public road. The public road is being torn up because the users obsessively want sewers. I mean,
You're forcing the You want. You're the one in violation. Old Lyme is in violation, not me.
I know everyone in this room feels this way. I've had the same meeting, or I've sat in the same meeting with people that wanted sewers that once it was passed in referendum have never shown up again. So there are two sides to this. I can't help the fact that you are getting sewers. I don't feel I would be placing the town in a good position to fight the DEP. So in that regards, I don't feel as though we're going to cut this project short. So yes, you will be paying the cost of paving.
But CWF will pick up some of that cost.
50%.
But the force main is not on the
Trenches.
Hello?
There's a bunch of private.
My turn. That's a disaster. Okay, well, let's just go one at a time. We got
Lori Trapero, on Hartford Ave in Old Lyme, Soundview. I live in Itsy Bitsy and Teeny Weeny, which you have said, one of the common residences in Old Lyme and Soundview, which they're not. Please direct me to where I can find the current data that shows pollution in Soundview and therefore the need for sewers.
That would be.
Also, let me finish. Please direct me to the data that shows that White Sands and Hawks Nest are not polluted and therefore do not need sewers.
environmental impact evaluation report that was prepared during the study that year.
I'm coming in on that one. So again, the PowerPoint that I put together, and a lot of this information can be found online on DEP's website. If you Google Connecticut DEP Municipal Wastewater, you can find actually copies of the environmental impact evaluations, the EIEs that we did in accordance with SEPA. And those documents have a lot of background information for you with the data, the sampling, the groundwater sampling. Again, going back to those two slides, kind of like at the beginning of my presentation, we're basically showing, what was all the different criteria that we looked at to deem this a community pollution problem. In the case of Hogsness, I know the town has collected additional groundwater samples. My understanding is that right now the appropriation only includes some U and miscellaneous town area B. However, having said that, the pump station and the force main will have additional capacity should ever be needed for Hogsness.
We're paying for it. We're paying for it. The additional.
I'm sorry?
You don't know for sure if they'll need it, so you're gonna let them jump in with us and let us take the whole brunt of all the money.
So we pay for it and they use it?
No, we're not.
And we're 3 streets, okay? 3 streets in the whole town. That's what sounds like.
What is your cost?
Your turn.
Hi, Frank Papalardo, Swan Island. By the way, we, Carlos, the data you're talking about right now, Soundview is over 10 years old, and significant changes have occurred since that time that data was collected. So you might be dealing with some erroneous data there for Soundview. I checked into that. I want to thank everybody here for the opportunity to provide questions and comments. Notwithstanding the DEP and WPCA approach of using an antiquated and potentially environmentally harmful solution, as well as their complete dismissal of the new, less costly green alternatives, my question is in regard to the WPCA cost estimates. As I understand the Woodward and Curran coastal wastewater management plan, the frontage of the EDU has up to 3 bedrooms. This is what's in your plan, Steve. So the frontage of the EDU is 3 bedrooms. They further state that Soundview has 229 EDUs and area B 41 for a total of 270. This is in the Woodward and Curran plan. According to the total Lyme assessor records, there's 656 bedrooms in Soundview and area B, which equates to 219 EDUs. So we have an immediate discrepancy with identifying EDUs. Out of the total number of assessors identified bedrooms, some are contained in 2 or more structures on an individual lot, or other condominiums, many of which currently share a common septic system. I'm having difficulty reconciling your cost estimates and your conclusions. Assuming we use the assessor's total number of bedrooms contained within a structure or structures on a single lot, with a single lateral pipe connection per property as recommended by the Connecticut Plumbing Code, and make the EDU calculations based on per property, we have 61% of the properties owing $22,000, with the remaining 39% owing considerably more, as much as $73,000 per property. These costs are based on your EDU estimates, recently provided to the Selectman. If you multiply that times the number of EDUs, we come up with about $4.8 million. You just said that the project's going to cost $6. You're already at a $1.2 million delta. If we use the per structure model instead of a per property model, the numbers are skewed even further. Considering the lack of clarity of how the WPCA arrived at cost estimates, and given the assessor's records don't match the WPCA records, how can you state with any degree of accuracy your estimates? In view of this, can we have any confidence in equitable cost-sharing agreement between each communities to compound these questionable WPCA estimates and sharing agreements? We haven't addressed the ongoing costs or potential ongoing cost escalation based on line aids with new release Lyme or seasonal versus year-round usage. I believe your methodology may be flawed, your data inaccurate, and therefore I have no confidence in your plan or your estimates.
Thank you for that comment.
Let me just touch on, I know that there was a lot of information in that comment, but let me just touch on sort of what you mentioned at the beginning, which is the data showing the pollution is inaccurate and dated. And I think what I just want to identify, of course, you may disagree, but from our perspective, when we look at data that evaluates where there's potential for pollution, I'm zooming out beyond old Lyme. As a matter of practice, with any community, any municipality, we make sure that the data is comprehensive enough, looks at different situations, different properties, looks at all these underlying factors that Carlos went through to make that determination that there is either pollution that is occurring or has a great potential to occur. So even though those planning studies, that work was done 10 plus years ago, ballpark, those underlying conditions that we talked about, the size of properties, the depth to groundwater, the presence of ledge, those factors have not changed. And so I would ask you to consider that although the data might be dated, again, the factors that went into really looking at this from a technical and a scientific perspective, looking at the public health code, et cetera, were based on all of the site factors, community factors that still exist today. So I just want to share that.
If that's the case, how was Fox Nest part of it and they're not part of it now because of their data? Fox Nest was part of it before, but now they're not part of it now because of the data. So is White Sands. So how did that change? If the data was the data, was correct.
My name is
Hold on. Let him answer the question.
Do you want to answer that question?
We want to answer that question. It's a good question.
Well, again, I know that additional groundwater testing was on the Fox Nest, and 2018, I believe when the town went to referendum to secure the funding for the project. I know the referendum only included Soundview and miscellaneous town area fees. So adding Fox Nest at the present time probably requires the town to go back to referendum and increase that appropriation. Again, we're trying to move forward right now. The subsidy that is conditionally being offered right now is probably not going to be around forever. We're trying to keep everybody moving forward on it at the same time. The private associations are already moving forward. Again, the pump station enforcement has been designed to accommodate additional needs in the future. So if Fox Nest ever wants to come in and connect, there will be capacity for that, and I think the Clean Water Fund program will be there to provide funding.
Well, we're paying. When they come out, we'll be reimbursed.
It just doesn't make sense.
Can I just jump in? So in my conversations with Weiner in London, he seemed to indicate that they didn't have much more capacity. He said he knows that you think he has more capacity than he does, but he does not believe that it's the same number you're coming up with. So he said to us, how much are you thinking of sending me? And we told him what we were including in our 4 beach areas. And he said, okay, we can handle that. He did not indicate that he was able to take any more. And I, as the first selectman here, if you're going to tell me in another year and a half that you want me to pull on White Sands and Fox Nest, I'm not going to be a happy person, nor is if someone else comes in office after me to find out I just dug up 156, and now you're telling me I need to dig it up again.
Yeah,
So I'd like to know where we stand.
Yeah, I would disagree with Mr. Weiner on his assessment that there is no capacity.
He said you would.
I disagree with that. And actually, in fact, the last permit that we issued in London, we increased the capacity of their permit to give capacity for the old Lyme community. So we added 300,000 gallons into their permit, specifically earmarked for old Lyme.
was 300,000 additional. So New London was.
When you say additional though, that means there was something
That
as
was
base.
something that was added to accommodate the sewer needs for all Lyme.
So is it 300,000?
So let me step back a little bit in terms of what $300,000 means, gallons means when Carlos says it. So for each wastewater treatment facility that exists in the state, we permit them and say you can accept X 100,000 gallons of water, or whatever that number is, based on what the design capacity of that facility is, what level of treatment exists. So periodically, those facilities either get upgraded, have more capacity, or they work within their system to control how much clean groundwater and things are coming into the system. So that actually creates capacity for what they can treat, because the clean water they're getting out of their system. But ultimately, periodically, when communities ask us as DEEP, as the regulating entity, to say, hey, my facility can now handle this much flow, i.e. 300,000 gallons more flow than what it did under the previous permit, we take a look at it and we say, okay, facility, okay, municipality, we agree with you. And so Carlos's point was that the 300,000 gallons that was increased was based on a request from New London, because they said, we need $300,000, I'm sorry, money is on my mind as it is yours, but we need 300,000 gallons. We have the capacity, the system can treat it, and so DEEP increased our permitted gallonage, and so that's what was done.
So basically, Misha, what you're telling me is we just had 300,000 gallons.
No, additionally, I mean,
What was the
Additionally
first?
to what?
What was the first number? How many gallons the first number?
So we have an agreement that hasn't been signed yet, but we have an agreement that has initially 50,000 gallons from Old Lyme, 120,000 gallons from the beach associations. That's our initial agreement. We can buy more. We can buy more capacity. We can buy 130,000 gallons more, almost double. We don't expect to even use the initial capacity. Boynton Woods is running at, I don't know, 33% of what their estimate was. So we're not expecting to use 170,000 gallons. We're probably going to use less. But if we needed more, we have up to 300,000 gallons in the agreement that will be signed shortly with New London. No, for a total of 130 additional, 300 total. New London's permit is 10 million gallons right now. When we join, it increases to 10.3. We're not affecting his capacity at all. As a matter of fact, he only uses about 7, so I don't know where this other capacity is coming from. He uses only about 7 million gallons, but regardless, there's plenty of capacity in the room.
My name is Daniel Carrico. I live in Soundview, 41 Hartford Avenue. First of all, I would like to thank Dennis Maluso and Mary Bailey, the only two members of the Old Lyme WPCA that actually represent and respect the interests of the Soundview residents. This is in contrast to the former head of the WPCA, who was instrumental in the removal of White Sands neighborhood from the onerous DEP sewer proposal. The critical criteria for acceptance of this proposal with Soundview homeowners is the actual determination of an EDU. After all these years, you still don't have this information. I suspect this delay is not merely incompetence, but possibly something more sinister. I have 2 small cottages on 1 small lot. They have a combined total square footage of 800 square feet and total of 3 bedrooms. They share a fully functioning 1,250-gallon septic system, which was designed and built less than 20 years ago. will I be assigned 1 or 2 EDUs? I should have this information today at this meeting. Thank you.
Under the thing that's posted, if the average house is 800 to 1,200, and that is 1 EDU, you'll be charged 1 EDU.
I have 2 homes on the property combined with 1 septic.
Okay, so if you look at the formula,
Then you can tell me today,
and
whether
if
it's
you
1 or
look,
2.
well, I just said 1 EDU, but two houses on one lot. So let's say your house, one of them's 400 feet, the other's 400 feet. You would be charged maybe a half EDU for one and a half EDU for the other because it falls well below the standard size. So that's what I'm trying to say. We're trying our hardest to statistically level this out so someone that has 2 small homes like you or 1 large home's going to pay more. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. You're going to pay more. You have more space, you have probably more bedrooms, you probably have more need for it. But the smaller ones will pay less. If you only had one 400 square foot house, you may pay only 0.5 EDU.
Don't you think this should have been determined after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years? What took you so long?
We've worked out, so we could rush into this.
We're not talking about
No, we could, so number one, we're all volunteers here. This is not our life. But number two, well, it seems to be mine, but number two, we've gone through 3 iterations already, trying to find a fairer method. It's not like, if you want, we could just say, everyone pays the same, and our problem is solved. We don't think that's the fairest way, because someone that does have a 400 square foot house would pay the same amount as someone with a 6,000 square foot house. So we're trying to work out different methods that become the fairest way of appropriating the cost of this project. So, yes, it's going to take time. I don't think the formulas are going to get any much different than France, though they may be tweaked. But for the most part, we have come up to some type of method of determining EDU count and where the houses will fall. And that's published online now.
What's wrong?
Next.
Okay.
Brent Swan. There was a referendum where the whole town had to vote on this money, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Why shouldn't the whole town burden pay for this? Every taxpayer in town voted on this. It was passed, so every taxpayer in town should pay. Just like in Soundview, I don't have to go to school, but I get taxed for the schools. Okay, so everybody should pay it. This way here, it's an even keels. If they get to vote for it, even though they're not going to be affected by it. I had to vote. You had to vote for the school budget. I'm not affected by it. My taxes went up. So the fairest way to do it is if the whole town had to vote for it. Everybody in the town should pay. Exactly.
So that's just not the way. Thank you.
That's where you guys decided on the way.
Who decided that? I'm not here to argue with you.
I'm not asking, you guys any question, who
If you
decided?
want me to answer it, I can answer it. If not,
Has it ever been
so in clean water funding, in almost 90% of clean water funding, it's the users that pay for the funding. It's not taxpayers. You get the benefit of the increased property value.
What is that?
You get so
They gotta pay taxes on it.
in general, we had an assessor that specializes in areas like this where sewers go through, and he determines, what do you think the assessment increased value of your home is going to be? In this case, he said 12%. So everyone that's sitting on a home that's worth $300,000 at 12%, their value of the house goes up $36,000 because you have a sewer.
But taxes go up too, then the assessment of the house goes up too, right? Your taxes go up, so it's a push. Okay. Come on, push.
I don't do the housing, I don't assess your house. I don't assess your house. So if it does, you're lucky. You have more equity in your house. I mean, I don't know what to say to you. This is, you live in a country that this is how things are done. I don't know what to say.
Well, how come the other beaches don't have to do it, and we do that? If you just said, what you just said.
What do you mean the other beaches?
Like sand and Marcus, they don't have to do it, right?
I don't know that yet.
Okay.
They're not doing it now.
Okay, now one more question.
If
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on.
In accordance with state statute, Maine Parisi, in accordance with state statute, the WPCA or the town cannot assess a property owner for source any more than the value increase of the property. How will the cost benefit analysis be done, and who will pay the difference?
The town would have to pay the difference. The town taxpayers would have to pay the difference. However, if the estimates are correct, and I believe they're very close to being correct, a $22,000 increase would mean that the house would have to be appraised at less than $200,000.
Nothing's priced less than 200,000.
I don't think that's possible.
I'll bring around to you.
I think you speak loud enough.
Well, I wanted to pick up on.
My name is Mike Moran.
Wait, he wanted to pick up on this.
Thank you for your presentation. That's the first one. My name is Mike Moran. I'm at 27 Harvard Avenue. Okay? And I want to revisit a question that came up earlier. I'm going back to your 219 presentation that provided DEP. In it says additional sewer costs. On it reads, typical user fee would be $430 a year per, again, this questionable thing that everybody jumps up and down on, EDU. Okay, so that would be, I presume, that would be an ongoing cost to the homeowner.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so, there was some discussion about that earlier, and I don't think there was a clarification as to what, how much it was, or it was then, back in 2019, I think it was. The other thing I'd like to just bring up, if I may, interpretation of water pollution. Now, this was presented by Dennis Ricci, PE Supervising Sanitary Engineer at DEP at the meeting. It says most older systems, especially around lakes or on the shoreline, don't meet the requirements of the current health system. I'm going to ask the DEP representatives here in reference to Rogers Lake. Has there been any discussion within your organization as to pollution occurring or being present there?
No, not that I'm aware of, I'm sorry. No, I'm not aware of what's, I'm not aware of pollution issues in Rogers Lake. I don't have the data in front of me. I don't know what to tell you there.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Deborah Tucson, 57 Hartford Avenue. What about the removal of the existing septic systems? Is that something that the homeowners are going to have to take on too?
Yes, so the connection, both Carlos and I think, pretty much agreed on what it would cost. So the connection that you have to pay for is from your house to the sewer lateral at your property limit. And once you do that, you would have to abandon your tank.
Tank or system?
Well, tank, you leave the system in the ground.
Well, you don't have
Okay.
You don't have to dig up your leaching field. It's
Thank
you just have to, usually they crush the tank, fill it in with dirt, and, well, you gotta pump it first. But then, they break it, they fill it in with dirt. And we estimate that cost to be around $4,000 to $6,000 per home.
It's more and more, it's not in addition to the connection.
No, it's $4,000 to $6,000 total. These are, I mean, a contractor could probably put two lines in a day. They're shot, they're not,
So that's 4,000 to 6,000, that's part of, eliminating the tank?
Yeah.
That's,
I'm sorry?
that includes eliminating the tank for the 6,000?
Yes.
So the hookup and elimination?
That's what.
No.
Yeah.
The six is eliminating the tank.
And then 4 to 6 to hook up, so it's 12,000?
$46,000 will get you probably, and so my background is in this business, all right? I'm pretty good at estimating costs. I believe that for $6,000, most of it, if there's no ledge, if it's just dirt that you're digging up, probably for less than $6,000, can get your line hooked up to your house, your tank abandoned, and it's seated, okay?
Most of the stuff is just about the rear of the house. So they gotta bring the line from the rear of the house all the way to the front. It's gonna cost more than $4,000 or $5,000.
I'm sorry?
Most of the septic systems are hooked up in the back of the house.
Okay.
So they gotta connect from there and bring it to the, all the way to the front.
Well,
It's
not necessarily. You could turn the pipe going towards the back of the house inside and turn it towards the front.
Yeah, but talk about the footage, how far it is from the back instead of the front.
Well, a lot of these houses don't, you can't get under, you can't get under the
I think we got a
house.
question in the back.
Okay, let's go back over to the side. Hey, McKillop Pearson from 1 Portland Avenue. I'm concerned about the status of the East Lyme IMA and our annual costs that would be associated with that. In 2017, Woodard and Carlin discussed the need to replace the Brydebrook pump station. 2014 estimated cost was $2 million. The old Lyme share of that is 30% of the daily flow. Also, using current Soundview share based on 270 EDU, the cost for replacing the Brydebrook pump station alone would be at least $1,000 per homeowner based on these 2014 estimates. Tadagansett pump station is also slated for upgrades. Old Lyme share of that station is 14%. How do we handle this going forward?
Those fees, if occurred, would be part of your usage fee.
So we can
Your
just-
yearly assessment.
Okay, so those are 2014 numbers and they're really high. And none of that has been discussed within any of this presentation. These numbers are being buried and you're not letting us know what the full cost of this is because I know that you're afraid that everybody is going to completely freak out. And rightfully so.
I disagree with that statement. I don't know the cost of Brydebrook pump station.
Well, how can you expect us to agree to doing something that's going to make us obligated to pay for these costs down the road? You're asking the town to enter into contracts based on numbers that don't exist or numbers that you just don't have. And I would urge you to get these numbers in place before you try to obligate the town, its taxpayers, and private beach associations and everybody else to all of this.
So there will always be additional costs that we don't know about. Okay? I mean, this is a system that requires maintenance, that requires overhauls. As a matter of fact, I was the person that rebuilt Brydebrook Pump Station 20 years ago.
Oh, so you have interest in this, I see.
I don't have any interest. I was just saying that. My company rebuilt that pump station. I rebuilt pump stations all over the state. They have to be maintained. This is like saying, you bought me a car and you didn't tell me how much repairs I'm going to have. How do they know? They don't know how many repairs.
Well, when you buy a new car, you can generally estimate that it's under warranty for a certain amount of time, and that you don't expect it to fall apart within the first 10 years.
Right, I believe I said within the first 20 years, there will be very low maintenance fees. So,
But what I'm talking about is the maintenance for these pump stations that are already in jeopardy, that we're going to end up paying for.
Yeah. So you gotta remember that when you're joining a tri-town system, you have economies of scale, right? You're not. So right now in the project area, we have 900 users or EDUs. East Lyme has another 3,000 users. So really, ultimately, the cost that you're going to see reflected in your O&M bill shouldn't be that significant because there's economies of scale, right? Right now, as a matter of fact, we're working with Brydebrook, with East Lyme. They're thinking about locating a pump station. There's a possibility that the Clean Water Fund program could also contribute to that project. But again, everything is going to be based on a prorated basis of how much flow is all Lyme contributing into a tri-town system. So I know East Lyme has a capacity of 1.5 million gallons. So all Lyme is really a drop in the bucket, to be honest with you. But yeah, I agree with your comment. I think that what we can do is, it's something that I've been hearing tonight a lot, is like, give an example of how much it's going to be for O&M, right, maintaining the system. What we can do is, we can try to come up with an estimate for you. Again, ultimately everything is going to be based on the actual flow that is going to be discharged, right? So for the very first few years, that O&M is going to be relatively low because of more properties connect. The flow will also increase, and that will also dictate how much you're going to have to pay. But we can try to estimate something, and we can put something together and then share it with the community to have an idea of how much it will be for O&M. Again, the O&M is not going to be that significant. Again, it's like kind of going back to what Steve was saying. You know, it's kind of when you buy a new car, for the first few years you have to worry about oil changes, maybe changing tires. You don't have to replace the transmission or anything like that. But all of that can be planned into something that is called sinking funding, right? You plan for unforeseen expenses, you create a set aside for that. But yeah, what we can do is we can put together like an estimate and O&M, not talking about capital costs, right? What I presented today was the benefit assessment, how much it's going to cost to construct the system, how much is going to be to run it. I'll be happy to run some numbers for you, and I'll be happy to share it with Martha, and she can share it with the community.
That would be really appreciated, because I think that a lot of what's going on here is that people are feeling like the community has been kept very much in the dark, and that we have never been given a straight answer about any of these numbers. Now, I know that some of it is fluctuating costs, but going forward, and before anybody signs anything, the numbers need to be more solid.
Right. And again, it's all estimate, right? Again, I cannot guarantee 100% that this is going to be, you know, right now, going back to what Steve was saying, you know, the private associations and the town of Lyme are buying 170,000 gallons of capacity. Going back to what Steve was saying, Point of Woods, when they extended sewers in 2005, they bought capacity for 105,000 gallons a day. And I kind of going back to what Steve was saying, I think he's right. Right now they're only flowing 1/3 of that, 15, 20 years after the fact. So again, we can try to estimate, give you an estimate of how much will be, including how much New London charges for treatment, how much East Lyme charges for conveyance, and how much is going to be for running pump station within the town of Lyme. And again, there are economies of scale there. You have a big user system that is contributing into that. So it really helps to lower the cost of O&M.
When you figure out the estimates, a couple of times you've talked about maybe the system being able to take Hawk's Nest in addition. Because that's why you have 170 to the 300. So my question, based off of what you're saying, is if you figured out the estimate, adding in the additional Hawk's Nest numbers, right? Because that in theory, we'd have to pay for that too, is what you're saying. So
well, you know, because the Hawk's Nest is not discharging, is that using?
No, but you're saying that you're going to add on, with the potential to add on. That's what's been numerous times tonight. It has been said Hawk's Nest and White Sands will have the potential to add on.
Just so you know, if anyone ever hooks into the system, they have to pay.
Well, we get you don't
understand. They will have to pay the WP. They'll have to pay the people that put the system in. It's not like they get to hook in.
So will we get reimbursed some monies if they add?
Well, maybe if the fee is large enough, you may have lower maintenance fees. I don't think
that's exactly what I'm at. Right. Once they add it out, we solely would not be responsible for the maintenance fees. They would be
shared infrastructure. That's what we're trying to get to here. Yeah. We're going to pay for the shared infrastructure, but they'll be able to connect to it, and we won't get reimbursed.
Yes, you will. No, that's exactly what I did say. What I said is that number one, these systems are designed to carry sewage from one. If Point of Woods put in a larger pipe, we wouldn't have to go all the way to East Lyme. We could connect into Point of Woods and pay Point of Woods whatever they charge us to connect it to their fee. So I mean, Unfortunately, we have 5 different WPCA's in this town. If it was under one WPCA, I think there'd be a lot more coordination and a lot more understanding. There are 5 different WPCA's. Point Woods, Old Lyme Shores, Old Colony, Miami Beach, Old Lyme WPCA. That being said, we're trying to be a little farsighted. The difference, I don't even know if you could get a store. We're putting, I think, an 8-inch force main down 156. I don't know if 6. So that can handle for every inch in diameter. You get. It's exponential. You get 3 times more flow. It's an exponential curve. So if if someone hooked in, we would charge them for it. We would charge them a lot of money.
Would they help incur the maintenance fees, sir?
Yes. I'm sorry. And then once they hooked in, they would have to contribute. They would lower everyone's usage cost probably because they'd have to contribute to the fund just like everyone else.
I want to just make a correction, because we're in the middle of rebound. As of this morning, the EDUs between the 3 private beaches and Shore and Sound View is 882, and that's from our assessor's office. So that is the new updated number. 882, and that includes businesses, commercial, condos, units in one house, etc.
882 what? That's based on
882.
based on the 3 bedrooms.
Based on 3 bedrooms.
The cost now.
That's the down.
Excuse me, somebody has a question, please, give me respect. Was the right-of-ways looked into for the sewer to go down instead of digging up the roads? Everybody's sewer septic is in their backyards. It's the easiest way to hook up. Why are we going through the fronts? There's an existing right-of-way. Let's use it. I don't know if it was or wasn't. I don't normally think that engineers look at going through swaths of private land to put in.
Not private land. Town owns it.
The town owns it, or the
Town owns it.
It wasn't, I don't know. I mean, that was a design decision. I will say.
It'll save a considerable amount of money.
Right, so maybe we should look at that.
And why is everything coming in Florida now? All 3 beaches.
Yeah.
Why doesn't it go to Miami?
Well, so you have to place the pump station somewhere. There's no available. So number one, you want to have your pump station at the lowest point in your system. Okay, so it's going to go that way.
Somewhere along the flooding.
Somewhere along the shore, right? So that's where it's going to go. And there was available land at Portland that we purchased for this purpose. There was no other available land.
You told us it was going in the parking lot.
It's prone to flooding.
Pump station was going in the parking lot.
In the summer.
I don't know that.
You know that what was flood over. Can't smell.
Can I just add a general comment? I don't know where all the right-of-ways are, right, within each of your areas, but what I can tell you is that, again, in general, when we look at these planning reports and the engineers do their assessments in terms of all the different alternatives for pathways, they look at technical, features, considerations, but cost always comes into the picture, like what is the best solution at the lowest price? So to your point about why not use right-of-ways versus roads, I can tell you just in general terms, based on what I know of the systems for financing, right? Because with state funds, we always want to make sure that whatever solution is the least costly, most feasible solution. And what I can say is, if they found a way to do it cheaper, that would have been in the forefront. I can't speak to the specifics, but the different engineering firms that have worked with with the different associations, they do a lot of work in this area. They do a lot of construction, whether it's sewer or different kind of construction. So I would be hard pressed to say they didn't look at all the alternatives. I'm sorry?
That's what happened, we all voted.
Just to let you know, it's a signature, I'm the signature for the shared infrastructure. Old Colony Beach has taken on that responsibility, and I have the shared signature responsibility. I will tell you right here, Fuss and O'Neill looked at every option available for that pump station. And we battled, like Frank Noe and I, for months worked with Fuss and O'Neill, and that is the most feasible and inexpensive option that they have. So that's why we did it. Feasible, and it is set up for flooding. It won't be enough.
I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I appreciate you coming your time. I have a question and comment. That was the first question.
Excuse me, can we listen to this question, please? Respect the speaker.
I'm just curious if, what's standard and customary? Is it standard and customary for a town to pay zero? Public roads, there's a public parking area, if you look at future consideration of public benefit, that you could put in, a bathhouse and clean up porta potties and make it nice, right? So the town benefits by that. The taxpayers benefit by that. I guess the question is, this EMU model, the percentages, all of that, I've seen things online where people pay just to actually come into their house. I've seen things where the town picks up a portion of it. As taxpayers, because that's the question part where we model this off of what town and what theory this is worth off of. And the statement part is, and this is to you, Martha, like, everybody in these communities have paid for high schools, we paid for Rogers Lake Boathouse, we paid for septic system upgrades to those schools, and our needs don't allow us to go to those schools, our kids to go to those schools. So we're paying for a benefit that we can't enjoy, and you could pay for a benefit or help.
Exactly.
Well,
there's no answer.
Can I get an answer? Was that a question? What was the question?
I'll do it again for you. The first question is, what was the standard that we followed? What city, state, what's the process that EDU was that? That we did at the time of the model? If so, what?
The EDUs, the 270 figure from EDUs was presented by our engineering firm, Goodwin & Kirk. Okay? The state allows a WPCA to determine what an EDU is. Okay, so that's why we can have Frank's formula. We can charge one house, one EDU. We can charge people that have 800 to 1,200 square foot homes, one EDU or 1.5 EDU, or so there's a whole latitude. We use the figures 270 EDU that you were given by the engineer. Okay, so that's what the original EDU is. We're going to look at, so there are commercial properties. I believe that Martha, when she said there are 889 EDU.
882.
They're not EDUs.
They're not EDUs, they're dwellings.
I didn't say they were EDUs. 882 homes or buildings.
Well, you said EDUs.
Well, I'm sorry, you actually talked about EDUs too much.
You said EDUs and they're dwellings.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I was mistaken on that, but it's 882 buildings that we are assessed, we have assessed in that area. From 909 back in 2018.
Okay, so all I'm saying is that you can't, we're trying to get as many people to one EDU as possible in Soundview. And we're trying to assess those that have a lower standard, lower money, lower EDU value, a bigger home, a higher EDU value. We're trying to be as fair as possible. We haven't even dealt with commercial properties yet. So I would imagine that the EDUs the price may go down a little based on, or Frank's formula may be adjusted down a little because we have to include commercial properties.
Second part of the question?
And just as a clarification to let everybody know, Old Colony Beach has 199 homes in our community. On the shared agreement, we're paying for 212 EDUs. 221 EDUs. We have 199 homes. And the reason being is because of the formula of the EDU is different than a home. So you gotta understand that it's not, if you have one home, and you say there's 800 homes in this community, and all of a sudden you hear a number of 900, it's a 900 EDU, it's not a 900 building or a home or a structure. So just remember that when you're thinking, when you hear about all these numbers.
Yeah, can I just chime in with one thing? And to your question about what's the standard, I think what I can tell you is, like Steve said, ultimately statewide, each community, each WPCA has the authority to make its own decision on how to split the user costs. So they have that latitude to figure out what the most fair equation is across the community. But what I will also say is that the use of EDUs is not typical. It is done elsewhere. So I just want to offer that to you.
Well, I'm Mary Daly. I'm Portland Avenue. Nice to meet you, Carlos. I think we exchanged some emails in the past. And I know that you had the pleasure of meeting my dear friend, Sandy Garvin. And Sandy had passed on to me before her passing her email communication with you. And I just want to share that with this group today. And I have some other questions. Basic, simple questions. First one is, you said 15 million max that the state will contribute. And the slide says 19, so please clarify if there is a ceiling that the DEEP is willing to commit to this project. And also, I mean, we talk about capacity, which is an issue, and yet routinely, your sewage treatment plants overflow into the Connecticut River, millions and millions and millions of raw sewage on a regular basis, almost every time it rains. So when you talk about capacity, do you figure that in? Because I see those reports on a regular basis, once, twice, 3 times a week. But let me just get back to what I want to say today. This is your communication purpose with Sandy Garvin. Okay. You said to her, right before she died, in 2022, she asked you for an answer on the test data that you required the town to spend $48,000 on, which was never analyzed or accepted by our WPCA. You said the town has collected groundwater samples going back to the latest was 2013, and that we collected more data in 2019. We understand that the town may restart groundwater testing with the main goal of making a determination of pollution sources or possible solutions. She said, I think Soundview deserves the same. And you said, based on cursory review of Dr. Wigington's report, the department's perspective is that it has a very narrow scope of evaluation. Evaluating community pollution problems related to on-site septic systems is a multidimensional effort, like you were saying earlier, that requires the evaluation of several variables. Variables such as subsurface conditions, soil, permeable tests we've never had here. Going from lot to lot, never done it here, although we've asked it several times. The condition and the age of the on-site septic system, by the way, many of us have already upgraded our septic systems in the 15 years that this project has dragged on. Compliance, and some of us have taken down buildings as well. Compliance with public health code, yes, most of us now use Connecticut water as our portable water. Lot size, we can't change that. Location, nearby drinking water, yes, we have changed that. Vulnerability to floods, we can't evaluate that. And rising groundwaters due to climate change. All of these variables should be evaluated individually and collectively to be able to render an assessment. These variables do not seem to have been included in Dr. Wigington's report, and that department would caution, and the department, meaning the DEEP, would caution against reaching conclusions in the absence of holistic evaluation. These are your words, and to be realistic, not. And you continue back there, and we have also brought to to the WPCA alternatives as geometrics. Dr. Cox, Mr. Cox came and spoke to us. Good options there. And you said, we are familiar with Mr. Cox's systems and we understand that these systems may be viable based on site-specific considerations. Site-specific septic system upgrades require a lot-by-lot understanding and evaluation of the site-specific conditions, such as soil permeability, which we have asked and been denied. Distance to sensitive receptors, such as drinking water wells. Ultimately, an engineering analysis factoring in all of these variables should be considered and dictate the viability and selection of any given solution or preferred alternative. We feel this has not been done, and until it is done, we don't think that this community is willing to accept sewers as the only option. Thank you.
I'll come over here.
Yeah, so maybe if I could just touch on.
She wants to give her some answers.
No, and we've got a copy of that, thank you, Mary. I know that we've exchanged a number of communications, and I understand we all have different perspectives here, right? And we may not agree on what the data is, what it shows, but what I can tell you is the department, before going down this road of saying there's a pollution problem, looked at things comprehensively. And some of what you excerpted and read out was, I think, Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong here, if I'm misremembering, but some of the data that you had presented to us was incomplete, and that was part of what Carlos was responding to. Now, again, I don't want to go back, and because I know that we may just disagree, and that is fair. But with regard to some of the things that you have said, with regard to the sewage overflows that happen in other communities, yeah, absolutely, those are problems that occur. We've got some cities in the state that currently have them, and I'll give you an example of the closest one that's maybe here is Norwich, the city of Norwich. They are investing both through Clean Water Fund as well as their own financing, $191 million they are investing into upgrading their wastewater treatment conveyance system and their treatment facilities. So yes, absolutely, those problems exist, and we're working with those communities to pay for the upgrades that are necessary to address pollution problems. I think with regard to the 15 million, so I think, again, if you said 15 versus 19 millions, once you have these PowerPoints, you can, again, go through the numbers, but it's talking apples to apples. So when we're talking about 15 million, I'm going to say, whatever the project cost is, when this goes out to bid, it's going to be, let's just say, for the purposes of, say, 50 million, right, is what was the estimate that we said at this point in time. But whatever that number is, and Carlos, maybe you can pull it up for me. That's fine. So whatever that number is, whether it's 45 million, 50 million, collectively, what we're saying is, as a matter of standard course, Clean Water Fund provides small communities like yours 25% grant. So that is essentially free money from the state. It does not have, it's not a loan component, doesn't need to be paid back. It is 25% as a matter of standard course. In this particular case, given the concerns we had with the potential for pollution, given the circumstances that existed, you know, when this project went out to bid and then cost escalation, et cetera, things not being available within the construction market, supply chain, what we recognized was that there was additional funding that was necessary to make this affordable for the community. And that's where we worked with our treasurer's office, and they were able to find a little bit of funding, this additional $15 million that we could direct towards this effort to move it forward. Because again, we're concerned about there's a potential for pollution, there's a potential for impact to human health, And we wanted to sort of mitigate that impact and that cost increase to allow this to move forward without having a really intense inaffordability component to those of you that have to pay for it in the long term. What I will say, and I know you maybe disagree with that statement, that's absolutely fair, it's your perspective, but this is what I'm telling you in terms of what we have tried to do at the state level to move this project forward in light of the circumstances that occurred, in light of the trying to address the pollution problem that we see exists. Now, what I will also say is, I think that 15 million, and that 15 million aligns with an additional 25% of funding that Steve was talking about, that Carlos was talking about. So, I can tell you that if this moves forward to bid, and et cetera, towards an agreement, then we have that available. The state intends to make that available, but I can also tell you that it will not be available forever. Again, with state budgets, we're always looking at what's available, what the most immediate needs are, and I can't promise you that a year or 2 or 5 down the road, if this is the solution that's chosen, that will be available. But I will say, going back to your point about how does the 15 million fit in, when you see the PowerPoints and the charts, you can go through those numbers and really see how that is sort of split and identified.
I just want to clarify. I think Mary's mixing up the highest end project, shared project cost of 19 million that the state had estimated in their financing with a $15 million not to exceed grant. In order for us to exceed the $15 million of additional funding, the forgivable loan, we would have to exceed 25% of the project. So 25%, we're estimating a total project cost of $53 million. We would have to reach 60 million. 25% of 60 million is 15 million. So we would have to exceed $60 million or $7 million higher than the already adjusted estimates in order not to take advantage of the $15 million loan.
Just in regard to the 15 million, 50% of it is not forgivable, is that correct? 50% of it will be out of
It's all forgivable. We're saying up to 15 million of forgivable loan.
So my understanding was that.
So, Mary, this is basically the way it's 25% of your project costs not to exceed $15 million. The loan is not to exceed 15 million. So 25% of 60 million, if the whole project is $60 million, 25% of that is 15 million. That would be covered by the loan. Any dollar over 60 million would not be covered by the loan. It would be covered still by CWF at 25%, but it wouldn't be covered by the loan. We had a total estimate of the project of $53 million, well beyond 60 million. So we expect that the whole project will be funded at 50%.
So you've seen the terms of the forgivable loan, is that what you're saying?
I have not seen all of the terms of the forgivable loan. I have told you this many, many times. I've seen this.
It is something that is never been done before at this stage.
Are you?
Yeah. I think there's already a consistent agreement, right?
Correct.
There's a draft. Yeah.
They should be able to have a draft.
So, yeah, but the terms, I think, will remain the same. So you have a draft Clean Water Fund agreement that is available. So the terms of the forgivable loan will be the same as the standard funding that you will see. So there's no change in the terms and conditions, ultimately, whether it's a grant, loan, or forgivable loan component. But I want to go back to just the numbers, the rough numbers, based on estimates right now. So if the total collective project cost is $53 million, then the standard funding that typically small community projects get is 13 million in grant, okay? Which is 25%. An additional 25%, which is what we're talking about through the forgivable loan, is another 13 million. So that's a total of 26 million out of the 53 million that would be a subsidy, essentially. And then the loan component would be 26 million. 20 years at 2%.
We're just gonna have, you didn't speak yet, so repeat speakers will be after single speakers.
Mark Merritt's not a repeater. Couple of quick questions. So part of what we're confused about, I think, or I'm confused about, is that there seem to be some unanswered questions. Who bears the overruns? What if homeowners or associations don't agree to do this? We don't want to pay. Who bears those costs? What if the estimate was undertaken? What's going to happen with that? Do we get to vote? Do we get to decide on this? And so that's part of our frustration. We don't know. We haven't been provided the avenues of, are we just barreling down this road, or do we have a vote? Can we stop this? Can we say, we can't stop this? So what if it's 80 million? We can't stop this. I guess
80 million would put us over the affordability. And that is one reason why the DEP added more money to this project, is to make it affordable.
Okay.
So there is certain stopgaps that protect homeowners. But in general, this is the path that 4 communities have been working on for the last 10 years. And this is the path that the DEP has approved.
Okay, so and then the other unanswered question is, why is there a gun to our head, but no guns to Hawks Nest or White Sands? How does that equal? How is that equal treatment? How can DEP just turn their back on that issue and force, have a gun to our head on this issue? I mean, that just doesn't seem fair. And my final question is there a precedent for 880 homeowners in any community in Connecticut that will pay, if it's 22,000, it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that, plus the connection fee at 5,000, so 30,000. Is there any example of any community of 880 people in Connecticut that each house was paid 30 grand? Is there any estimate? I mean, what's the max that homeowners have paid?
I don't think I can give you a one-to-one exact example of like another 880 home community. But I mean, here's online, we got Pointer Woods back in 2005, right? And again, I'm not sure
It's a private community, sir. It's a private community. The question is, has it ever been done in a public community before?
So we've done it in Bolton Lakes. Bolton actually.
What was their cost for you?
I cannot tell you from the top of my head. I'm sorry. I'll be more than happy to get you the answer, and I can give you.
So do you think 30,000 is reasonable for homeowners? Do you think as DEP, when you see all these projects, you've seen a number of them, is 30,000? Yeah, that's a reasonable number. I see that all the time. Or is this, this is really getting really high? What's your estimate of that?
So we utilize rule of thumb estimate, which is based on EPA's affordability criteria, which is 2% of the median household income. So 2%. So basically, median household income in whole Lyme is $122,000 a year. So 2% of that would be the cap. Again, this is just based on U.S. Census. I'm going by the data.
Second home, so there's.
So you're saying that
But yeah.
2% is the cap that homeowners should pay? 2% of 122,000. We're at 30,000. We're at 25%.
Way past that.
I think the question is the number of 30,000 plus or minus an unreasonable number for a project like this? So I think that's the first part. So
what's the highest amount you've ever assessed a community of 1,000 people?
Yeah, and I think, again, we don't know that off the top of our heads, so we
Well, you
can
can
provide
look
some information. Yeah, we can provide some information.
We can research it.
That would be great, because it seems out there.
Yeah, I mean, it will have to be adjusted by inflation and all that, but I can definitely do the exercise.
She's got the mic.
Sorry.
Sorry, I can take that. Sorry about that. Just to follow up on a couple of things here. Steve, you
you had mentioned that if it was like $80 million, this would stop. So the pollution goes away and the costs are
Frank, that's a good question. I asked that once before with Carlos.
So what was the answer?
The answer was that when it becomes economically unfeasible,
The pollution goes away.
no, the pollution stays there. But the state does not force people to go broke. And so they have a criteria, excuse me, I'm sorry. They have a criteria that they use, and if it goes above plus or minus 2% of the median household income, if it doubled it, it would become economically unfeasible. Pollution doesn't go away. You can live down there and drink the water if you want, but pollution doesn't go away. They're just not going to force you to take your sewage and bring it to New London.
So I think it's not as black and white as that. I have to tell you that the pollution still, and as the agency that tries to protect the environment, the pollution is still there. And this is why we're trying to make it more affordable. And that's why we have really worked to try and provide this additional subsidy, because we do not want the alternative, which is this falls apart and there is not a plan to sewer as the most feasible solution, because then it becomes tougher for all of us in the end.
Like you, Steve, you mentioned earlier that you still haven't defined how many EDUs we have in the Southview area.
No, we have, Frank. We have 270.
You have 270, but based on what? Based on a equipment current report, which says an EDU is up to 3 bedrooms. We just did the math ourselves, and according to our assessor records, we have 217 EDUs. Okay, that's number one. That's number one. The number two question is, I follow on what something Doug said earlier, is that they identify their EDUs differently than you're identifying them for some view. I don't know how Miami's identifying, or I'm sure it's identifying their EDUs, but if you have 4 communities that all are identifying their EDUs differently, how do you establish a cost-sharing agreement that's equitable?
We use the engineer's estimates from each of the associations. So Fussin' O'Neill provided engineer's estimates. We used engineer's estimates. They don't agree with theirs. They're paying 20 or 21 more than what their households should say. We don't necessarily agree with ours. I thought ours should be a little lower. But when you're going through all the numbers and you're trying to manage a system, you have to come to some standard. And the standard that everyone decided to use was the engineer's estimates. So that's what we're using. Going forward, when we go into usage, it's going to be based on usage, not EDU. It'll be based on actual usage. So if O-Line uses 2%, we'll be contributing 2% to the system.
I think you need to go back to the drawing boards on how you're establishing these EDUs in the Southview area, because according to the Woodward current report versus what the assessor says, they don't match. It doesn't match. It doesn't jive. And if we use the $22,000 per EDU that you would just propose up here, we've got numbers that are all over the place.
Yes. Okay. So listen, as I said, we are working on determining what an EDU will be. We use the most up-to-date records the town has at town hall. I can't go into everyone's house.
But you said you knew what an EDU was, now you said you're determining what an EDU will be. Now, which is it? Do you know what an EDU is, or don't you know what an EDU is?
An EDU is an equivalent dwelling unit.
Well, what is the definition of that?
We've defined an EDU already.
Define it.
It's between, a house, I believe, between 800 and 1,200 square feet is an EDU.
So it's not bedrooms like the Woodward and Porter report, the one that you've used.
As I said, the WPCAs have wide authority on how to determine an EDU. We could say that your house, I don't know, how big is your house?
It's 900 square feet.
How much?
900.
900 square feet. We could say everyone's a house that's 800 square feet is 1 EDU. A 900 square foot house is 1.2 EDU. I mean, what we're trying to do is ensure that 85% of all the homes down there
fall into one EDU. And the remaining 15% either pay less or more to come up with the funds necessary. So come up with 270.
But that's all well fine. You could define it any way you want. The bottom line is you still have to come up with $6 million. So you're still gonna have to divide that out to come up with $6 million. Whether it's $22,000 per EDU, or $30,000 per EDU, or $35,000 per EDU.
Frank, why don't we call it one EDU and say, we'll call it, everyone down there has one EDU, and then we'll assess the EDU as 0.1 of each house. I mean, you're talking about nuanced stuff here. What we're trying to say is the whole line WPCA is trying to get 85% of all the people down at Soundview to pay the equivalent of one EDU, which would be $22,638. The remaining 15% will either pay more or less, depending on the size of the home.
But I'm telling you, the arithmetic doesn't add up. It doesn't come out.
Let them work on it. Let the WPCA work on it.
We'll talk about this offline, but the arithmetic doesn't add up. I'm not a mathematician, but I can.
We have somebody here that has the first question.
All right, well, I don't know if I'm the only one here
Just
from the
name
area.
an address.
Sally Whitewoods from Swan Avenue up in miscellaneous area B. As you see, I'm probably the only one here.
You do, oh, yeah.
Because that's all there is a few of us. I don't know how we got dragged into this. They added A and B, then they took A out, left B in. I mean, we can't possibly be contaminating anyone's. I have my water test. We have wells up there, most of us. It's clean as a whistle. And no one has ever explained why we were adding when white sands was removed. Never had an explanation on that. I guess just to lower the cost for everyone else. Most of us are seniors or disabled up there. Can't really afford this. This is beyond affordability. I think for most people in this room, are seniors, fixed incomes. More than we make a year. That's more than our taxes a year.
Okay. And now your house is gonna go up and your taxes will be more. Because you got sewers.
And then we're gonna raise our taxes because
we have sewers,
raise the
but you win.
assessment, which I've talked to assessors and they all say it does not raise your assessment. No one cares as long as your toilet flushes, they don't care where it goes.
So what I can say is, I think we don't know. I think we have to circle back with the engineers and answer that question for you. So we'll go back and do that. That's, I don't want to give you an answer that I don't know yet.
But we're half mile from the water, we're nowhere near it.
Yeah, but we can go back.
We've got good soil, there's no ledge, there's no sand.
Yeah, no, understood. So we'll let you know.
I am Brian Cornell. I live on Portland Avenue in the Notorious Area B. I have, let's talk about something different instead of talking about EUs that I don't understand either. Has the Lyme WPCA as a group ever been shared with the details of this agreement with all these other towns racing up to Lyme? Second question. A couple of weeks ago, there was a gentleman here who was very polite in talking about excellent alternatives to digging up the roads and such. As far as I'm concerned, he was just waving the hand and he was gone because nobody wanted to talk about it. How much have we spent on this project so far of all of our tax dollars? And the last one is, I think, because I'm more confused than ever now, I think we should just shut this blasted project down, and Mr. Snobby, you should resign your position, and we can all go our happy ways.
Yes.
So,
Thank you very much for your comments. Dave Potts gave a presentation about alternate systems, and when asked about the price, he said, well, they generally run, we charge $25,000.
$3,000.
$25,000. That doesn't include installation. So you're at $30,000. I mean, I don't know, if your system fails right now, what's it gonna cost to replace?
$14,000 because my neighbor did.
Okay.
And I talked to the person who installed it.
And now she's gotta hook up to the sewer now.
And they just,
All
they
right,
had.
so you may be, I mean, you are in a different area than.
You don't have to connect, you gotta pay.
Regardless, I mean, it's.
You don't have to connect, you gotta pay.
So.
You don't have to connect?
Listen,
Yeah.
I don't get paid for this job, and if I could resign and the problem goes away, I would do that. But it's not gonna go away. This is not going away, people. This is not going away.
Why isn't the tax base going
across
the whole?
You could stop it, you could fight it like Old Saybrook did. Old Saybrook ended up putting in septic systems, alternate septic systems, that cost up to $69,000 a home, and now they're still putting in a community septic system because it's cheaper than bringing it to Deep River. So they're still complying with the state order. It may be 10 years later or 20 years later, but they're still complying with it. Here, the state's willing to give us 25% extra, 50% funding. You want to throw that away for 5 years of arguing to come up with 25%? I don't see any town ever winning these arguments. It may take longer before it's installed, but they don't win.
Can you explain the consent order and the legal obligation? But I think people don't understand that you're saying that horse left the barn. If we don't do something, are we subject to a lawsuit for fines? What is the one that we don't want to talk about? What would happen if you don't get the town, each community to agree to the resolution and the project stops? What are the ramifications to the town?
So I think, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think the ramifications of not complying with those consent orders, and those orders are agreements between the entities, so each of the associations and the department that essentially say, we agree that there's a problem and we're going to do X, Y, and Z to fix that problem. And D, you need to give us the time in order to fix the problem. So that's the agreement that exists in the form of a consent order right now between all the associations and D. So if you look at those consent orders, there is language that if you do not comply ultimately with the dealing with the fix that was determined essentially, then the department has the ability to use additional enforcement. And that's where I talk about the enforcement response policy that I mentioned earlier. It lays out all of the things and the scenarios in which DEEP enforces when we don't have compliance with something that was agreed to that was a matter of law. So it could be penalties. It could be, so the problem again, we're still looking for a fix. So if the choice is made not to sewer, but to do something else, again, our perspective is, I don't know what that something else is that is actually feasible, that complies with the public health code, that is manageable from a site-to-site perspective, right? Maybe one site can handle a new septic system at a cost of $14,000, but not everyone can. And so what is compliant with the public health code? What is compliant with the environmental standards that exist? And what can you actually get in the ground that's going to do the job? So I don't know what that is, because based on what we've seen thus far, all of those options were looked at, and not just in a cursory fashion. Like, we didn't come into this saying, let's sewer. We looked at all of these 4 options that we laid out, and it wasn't even me as the department. It was 2 separate set of engineers working with each of the communities that said, let's look at this with looking at all of these factors and let's see what's actually doable. And that's how we arrived on the sewering solution. economic cost, understanding that it's still a big cost. I'm not disagreeing with any of you on that. But ultimately, there's still a solution that is necessary. And if there is not compliance, I think we as the department have to go back and look at all of the different tools we have, and that's more enforcement. It could be referral to the Attorney General's office. It could be penalties. So again, we don't want to go down that road. We want to work cooperatively, and we still think that any deviation from this course just makes getting to a solution harder for all of us. And that's my perspective. I understand you may not share that perspective, but that's sort of where we're coming from.
So we gotta wait till it gets to 80 million, right? So we just drag it out for another 5 years, it'll be 80 million. No problem.
You stall it.
Stall it,
Check the
stall it
price
for 80
out,
million.
and then we don't have to pay.
We have an emergency chair that would like to add a little to that. No, I'm sorry. Could we have Frank add to that, please?
And then Janice.
Sure. My name is Frank Noe. I'm the chairman of the Oak Colony.
Frank, can I ask you to pick up the mic so pick up on the table? Thank you.
My name is Frank Noe. I'm the chairman of the Oak Colony Beach WPCA. I'm also a owner of Kokomo's Restaurant. I'm also the owner of 58 Hartford Avenue. I'm also the owner of 59 Swan Avenue.
Good for
I
you.
just want to say, all these questions that everyone has tonight, I've been brought up to the Oak Colony Beach WPCA numerous times. I was the one that initiated the first call to DEEP 14 years ago.
Yeah, thanks.
It is great. Okay?
Thanks for the parking lot, too.
And I want to comment on that. Thank you for the comments. But I have a WPCA meeting once a month. And it's on Zoom, and it opens up to all the residents. We also have twice a year our annual Oak Colony Beach annual meetings. Again, these questions that you all have been brought up numerous times. I just want to share with you that your neighborhood and your community is no different than Oak Colony Beach. I also want to share with you that 89.9% of our residents are in favor of this project. So why can't 89.9% of Oak Soundview, me being owner of 3 properties, and probably being, talk about EDUs, I own Kokomo's. I'm going to have a higher EDU than any of you.
Yeah, why don't you close it?
I have no problem with it, because I'm a believer
Yeah,
that sewers is the way to go. And I don't know how many in this room have cesspools. And I bet you quite a few of you have cesspools.
Only in Oak Colony.
Okay? Yeah, well, I'll beg to differ, but I'm not getting into that calculation. So, again, I just wanted, on a positive side, because I just all I heard tonight was negative, and concerns about money. We're talking, don't talk $30,000, sir. Talk $1,300 a year, okay, at 2%. Man, $14,000 for a cesspool, for a septic system, and you have to come up with $14,000 out of your pocket, or you have to borrow it at 7 or 8% from the bank. Figure that number.
Well, maybe you can afford it, and maybe she can't. So
Yeah.
don't start pointing your finger.
Yeah.
Let's take that there. Don't start pointing your finger. No, excuse me. No, you're the problem, Frank. You're the one pointing your finger.
You're the problem.
She can't afford it. You can't get called up there to say, no, he's taking the school.
Big shot.
You want to talk? What's going? She told us about limited income.
You're welcome. Why don't you close that place? And the rest of the mouth you got. Parking lot in the middle of Hartford Avenue. We're all happy about that too, Frank. That's what we wanted to look at all the cars that party in the parking lot.
Excuse me.
We don't need that.
We have a speaker.
This is a meeting, all right? Let them speak.
Let's just, okay?
Yep.
I apologize for that behavior for our town. We don't normally act that way. And we're going to be respectful of everyone.
On both sides of the coin.
On both
Yeah.
sides of it. Dennis, Can you hold this while you talk?
Sure.
Thanks.
I won't get anybody with it.
Okay.
Dennis Maluso, Portland Avenue. Got a couple of questions for Deep. Why does the Connecticut River define one side of the river doesn't need sewers and the other side of the river does? And it's because of two different health districts. And where is our health district? In New London. What does New London have? Sewers. What does Saybrook have? Septic systems. And I have a letter from Mr. Greasy from 2009 abdicating the structure of sewers in Old Saybrook is not required, and to use Connecticut water funds for the rehabilitation of septic systems. That's what they're doing. Barring whatever Steve Tsunami says about sewers, a community sewer system or a septic system is just like what we had at Cherry Stones. Problem is, I'm not a math wizard, but I know 900 houses don't go into 100 acres. It's simple. Clinton just put in this year a brand new house at the end of Eagle Walk. Smaller lot than we have in Soundview. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Geometric system. Out on the point. It's a peninsula. Why there and not here? I still have a little ways to go yet. The state DEP is willing to give $15 million of whose money? Tax money, correct? That's where it comes from, okay? I would suggest you take that $15 million, give it to Mr. Tong, and sue every treatment plant from Cromwell all the way up to Bellows Falls, Vermont. They're the ones that are causing the pollution, not us.
Yep, 6 million gallons.
6 billion gallons this year. Billion. And we're stuck between Connecticut River and Thames River, where there's another sewage plant right at the mouth. This is craziness. I invited Dave Potts to give a good presentation, and he was poo-pooed. And that's the leading scientist that we have in Saybrook that does on-site systems. Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Just to add to that, as you know, Clinton at one point was under a consent order by Dave.
There still is, there
And
still
they are
are.
no longer under that consent order, correct? Because instead, what they did was these systems, and they extended their water lines. Is that correct? I have an article in my bag if you want to see it. Go in there. I'll give it to you after this meeting. I'll share.
We have one more question.
Should be the last question.
I got one more.
9:30 was the.
Well, we're going to have 2 more questions, and then I have one comment.
Is there any answers to what Dennis said?
Well, I do have one answer to that. I don't believe Dave Potts was poo-pooed at the meeting. We were respectful to him, we listened to him, we asked questions. Maybe we don't agree with him. I mean, he said that the average cost of his system is $22,000 to $25,000 plus the installation fee. That's not cheaper than the $22,000 estimated for a sewer. So that's number one. Number
Wait, Steve, can I just say that $22,000 doesn't include the $6,000 for hookup, correct?
Or maintenance fee.
Or the fee.
These systems don't last forever, and I installed one recently, or I was in charge of installing one recently, that cost $90,000. So there's a big range there. One in Old Saybrook, when the last one in Old Saybrook they installed before going to a community septic system cost $69,000. So if you're thinking $22,000, you might want to think $50,000 or $40,000. You don't know until he comes down there. Plus, they're all mounded, so everyone's house is going to have a big mound in it. Because you don't have enough clearance on your, most people don't have enough clearance from the water table to have this system work properly. So, but regardless of that, I thought we were respectful, we asked questions, he told us we should fight DEP. I don't think that was very helpful. I think we said, well, we're told by the DEP to install sewers. He says fight it. I don't know if that was helping us understand this problem.
Okay, one more follow-up, then we have one other question, and then that, we're going to...
Steve, my first question to you was, has the sharing agreement between all the towns, between Old Lyme and all the way up toward New London and such, been shared with the WPCA in town? And how can we see a copy of that document? Thank you.
All right, so, yes.
You want me to take that?
What?
You want me to take that?
Well, I'll say, yes, the agreements, all the agreements have been shared with the WPCA and approved for the first selectman's signature. We've approved her to sign the document.
Every member of the WPCA.
No, the WPCA has approved signature by the first selectman. If you want to know who voted yes, who voted no, look at the minutes. You probably can guess.
Wait, did they see a copy of the WPCA? Did they see a copy of the IMA? No.
Yes, they have.
No, they haven't.
What does that mean? Where was it? We didn't see it. Just send it out again.
What, the New London Agreement?
The New London Agreement that was in everyone's email was if you didn't see it, you didn't look at it. Let me put it this way. Everyone has been given the New London IMA for approval, for the first selectman's approval to the signature. If they didn't look at it, I don't know. But everyone, it was in everyone's email.
The East Lyme already signed it.
The East Lyme was signed a long time ago.
Good for them.
No, Old Lyme signed the East Lyme and Waterford before. Currently, I will just share that the IMA from London has questions from our attorney. He was not involved in the negotiations to the end extent. He has some questions, and we're trying to get answers to those next week. But that's where we are. Because right now, he's advising me not to sign it. He has some qualifying language that he needs to be added.
Thank you.
Okay. We've got one.
You got questions?
No, I'm gonna hold it. Give her a break. Thanks.
If we bid October, November, construction could start as early as the winter of 2020.
And what's the duration?
Only if we go,
I would think
A year. $50 million. You can't work in the summer. You have high traffic. Does your cost of construction include construction management and orchestration? Complete part of the Who's the entity that manages the construction? Who's what? Who's the entity that manages construction?
All line will probably be looking at her. There are engineers for associations.
For the shared infrastructure of the
And the individual one for each homeowner, I can't speak for that. Each one will be responsible to manage. You're gonna silo, even though it's bid as one project.
It's not bid as one.
It's bid as five projects. So everything down on private streets is bid by that group and then administered managed by their own thing.
Whatever is included in the bid, the streets, the area that we're beach, As themselves an engineer. Now, I don't know their agreement, but in general, the design engineer is usually the administrator.
But that cost is included in their number.
That cost is included in the number, Scott? Yes. It's included in hours.
You say hours, where are you from?
I'm from the old line WPC.
Where do you live?
Wow. I don't think that really matters.
Outside of the line. I have a question. Do you have to hook up?
You don't have to hook up, but you'll be charged the hookup fee.
That makes sense, okay.
Okay, so you don't have to hook up.
If you have a converting septic, you don't have to.
Okay, right? And when now everybody,
You will have to hook up eventually. You do have to hook up eventually.
why? If I don't have to hook up in the beginning, why do I have to hook up eventually?
If it fails,
Huh?
because if it fails, it's just.
Oh, I just have it repaired.
Because the whole idea is to limit the pollution.
Okay, everybody got the sewers. Now how about everybody puts washing machines in?
Okay.
Though, how does that going to affect now Hawks Nest when they want to come into the system now? Because we're going to be using a lot more water if everybody got washing machines.
I don't believe that's going, I don't know about hypotheticals. I believe the design criteria for any project like this is a 2 or 3 times factor of safety. So if you're at 1 and you go to 2, you still have a 3rd factor of safety involved. It's not over-designed, it's not under-designed.
Okay. But I'm just saying, if everybody uses washing machines and then and the other ones want to come in, it's going to be more money, right? Because we're using more gallonage. And it's, okay?
Well, it'll be more money for the individual owner because you have to pay more because you have to pay for the usage.
I think that's it, Martha. You want
Yep.
to make a comment?
I got one more. And let the town parking lot pay for all the repairs and maintenance. Right?
We'll take the number.
No? No shit.
We took it from over there, I just want to return it. Thank you, sorry. Oh, thank you.
It's a precursor to getting ready to bid a project.
Get some good shots. Get some good shots.
Yeah, there's a couple.
We can make some more candidates. Just teasing.
Have to ask you, I have.
Everyone, please.
You work for the state, I work for the town. These are my residents. I have people in perhaps this audience that are, you can't hear me? No. Okay. So I have residents, perhaps some of them here in this town. Since the last time you came in and did testing, many of these people have put in new septic systems. I met a nice couple who just bought a house earlier this winter, and to get the closing on their house, they had to put in a septic system. They spent $40,000 doing it. They also upgraded their well. And he was on the beach, and he met me, and he goes, "We're having so much fun living here." And he said, "But someone just told me we have to hook up to sewers. When is that going to take place, and how much is that going to cost me?" Now, he just put a $40,000 system in, which he believes in, and there was no mound in his yard. He showed it to me. So what am I supposed to tell these people who 5, 6 years ago started putting in septic systems to get rid of their cesspools, to change things, because they don't want to pollute? None of these people in this room want to pollute. Not one. So what am I supposed to tell them when I tell them now, we're going to need another 30,000, you're going to have to take out a loan? Look around this room. These people are not young. I'm not. They're not young. And these houses, I've got letters, by the way, to give to both of you, but these people could lose their homes. Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's
Ouch.
a really tough situation. Yes. I think, let me ask this question. How many of those individuals are you aware of? I think, certainly we'll take a look at it. I think what I understand of how that's been handled in the past is hypothetically, or generically, I should say, not hypothetically, is you still, again, as being part of the community and being overall part of an association that has developed a cohesive plan, a collective plan. I think they would still pay a benefit assessment, but not have to pay O&M.
And what, hook up over time, once the system fails?
Correct.
That's,
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's never been told to us before.
Come up with 20, like $1,400 a month. I mean, a year, which is still a lot of money.
That will raise the cost.
Especially if our electric bill is gonna be this winter, probably $1,000 for me.
But I would think that would also come into some sort of affordability. If you're on retirement, set incomes, I would think that would have to be considered into affordability. I am sure that Attorney General Tom would take that into consideration, because I don't think he really wants to take away people's houses.
No, and let me be clear, we don't want that either. I mean, this is not about taking away anyone's house. I think what we're trying to do, again, is solve a problem, a pollution problem we think exists, and provide as much financial. I know you may not agree, but this is my statement. What we are trying to do is find a solution that is implementable and provide as much state assistance to, again, buffer the economic impact of this. And we understand that there's an impact here. Like tens of thousands of dollars initially, and then over time is not insignificant. I get that. We all get that. But I think what we're trying to do is, again, offer as much assistance as we can to really provide support to the community to lessen that impact.
What would the cost be if it was totally spread out throughout the whole town?
It's a town road.
I mean, it would be
$35 a year per
how much?
$35 a year.
About $35 a year is what.
yeah, but you can't assess a sewer district tax on people not in that sewer.
But we aren't a sewer district. Our taxes don't go down, and we can't send our kids to school because our water gets shut off.
Say assess your
So I can't live there year round.
2%.
And I don't get a
That doesn't make sense.
That would be something that would have to be decided between the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, the tax people, the assessors, etc.
And we aren't a district because the district has to be voted by the people within the district, and we didn't vote on it. The town voted on it. So it is not a sewer district. We are the town of Old Lyme.
Exactly.
The town of Old Lyme is a violation, not the district of
Soundview. To the seasonal people. For the referendum, they have no idea that it's happening.
That is not true because it was posted.
I talked to many people and did anybody get a mailer?
It's not a mailer by law, by ordinance, it has to be posted in.
No, but you weren't the selectman.
No, this is an ordinance that has been in place for many years. It has to.
Excuse me,
I know, can I just finish my sentence?
Sure.
Okay, there is an ordinance, and I can't remember the number at the time, but it's a town ordinance, and every single referendum is posted in 4 newspapers from November till May for those people who are seasonal residents. And those were selected by the Hartford, it's the Hartford Current, the New Britain Herald, the Springfield Republican, and the Day. And we just sent out a survey to update that so that people, and it's on the website, you can still do it. Let me know which paper you read. If you don't read one of those, let me know which one you do.
I live in town and I got a specific mailer explaining the whole thing, and the seasonal people didn't. They told me the reason it wasn't done is that it would cost too much money.
I don't. That Bonnie,
that's what she said specifically when I asked her.
Can we wrap it up, please?
Okay, so yes. You want to go home? Let's go. Okay. All right, we are going to let Carlos and Misha leave. I'm sure that our conversations will continue. Jude, where'd she go?
Am I sure?
Oh. June and I will take some of these comments back and share them with Jim at Board of Selectmen. Our next meeting is Monday at Tuesday at 9 a.m. And maybe we'll see some of you there for future meetings. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.